Hi, everybody. Today I am back with some more reading progress and ratings for books that I have finished to wrap up the month of May. And I will be talking about my June and summer reading plans because my June TBR will likely be carrying over into the rest of the summer. So let's begin. The next read on my comfort TV shows TBR is The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. This romance book was introduced to me last year from Sarah Caroli, and I am looking forward to reading it. On a reading list I found on Instagram for comfort TV shows, this book was under the listing for One Tree Hill, which I will be starting to watch after Labor Day with Kathleen. And we will be doing a character comparison in our video in the fall for Lucas Scott from One Tree Hill and Max Braverman from Parenthood. The next book I am reading currently is called Broken Harbor by Catherine Cowles. It is the third book in the Sparrow Falls mystery series, and I am currently on chapter 7. I just started this book 45 minutes ago. The next book is a new release I have heard hyped up from Carrie Can Read because this book was written by her friend Susan. And I'm very happy to be introduced to a new romance author. A lot of my favorite authors have blurbed this book. Allie Hazelwood, Christina Lauren, Rachel Lynn Solomon, and Julie Soto. So I am on page 66. The next book I'm reading is The Spell Shop. This book has been recommended to me by a couple of different booktubers. One of them primarily, I believe, was These Lyrics in Lines, but I also think that Rachel Catherine might have read it. I also think that Destiny might have read it at one point. This book is it's about a girl named Keela who has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, she and her assistant Kaz, a magically sentient spider have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbooks, preserving their magic for the city's elite. When a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz flee with all the spellbooks they can carry and head to a remote island Keela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Keela discovers, much to her dismay, a noisy, very handsome neighbor who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and happy to fix up her new home. In need of income, Keela identifies something that even the bakery in town doesn't have: jam. With the help of an old recipe book her parents left her and a bit of illegal magic, her cottage garden is soon covered in ripe berries. But magic can do more than make life a little sweeter, so Keela risks the consequences of using unsanctioned spells and opens the island's first ever and much-needed secret spell shop. Like a Hallmark rom-com full of mythical creatures and fueled by cinnamon rolls and magic, the spell shop will heal your heart and feed your soul. So this book gives up vibes a little bit of Legends and Lattes because of the magical bakery that's mentioned. So far, I am on chapter 7, page 67, page 68. So the next book that I just finished reading is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. This is the second book in the series with To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I read To All the Boys I Loved Before last February for Valentine's Day, and I was not a huge fan, I was so annoyed by Lara Jean by the end of the book that I wasn't sure I was ever going to read the next book in the series. But I did, and I was pleasantly surprised by Lara Jean's character development and maturity in this book. I liked her a lot better than I did in the first book. So the first book got 2.75 stars, which is pretty close to 3. And this book gets a 3.25, and next I'm planning to start reading The Summer I Turned Pretty. The next book is called Certain Girls by Jennifer Weiner. I talked about this book in my video a couple of days ago, and I finished it yesterday. This is a romance book by Jennifer Weiner. She has a couple of her other books that I want to read next are called In Her Shoes and Good in Bed and Big Summer. So this book focuses on a single mother, Canny, who I think her name is short for Candace, and her 12-year-old daughter, Joy, who is approaching her bat mitzvah. So as I mentioned in my other video, I picked this book for my From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR because the mother-daughter couple obviously remind me a lot of Lorelai and Rory, and their dynamic with the the deadbeat dad, Bruce, is definitely reminiscent of Christopher. So I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I'm going to be reading, I think the next book that I will be reading by Jennifer Weiner will be Big Summer, because it's summer almost, and that will be a good book to get me in the season. The next book was Brianne Randall's new release from February 16th. I think this came out on February 16th. I don't have the exact date in front of me. This book is called Spells, Strings, and Forgotten Things. Her debut release last year was called The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic, which I gave 4 stars to. And this book actually got 5 stars because I just loved the dynamic buildup between Calliope and Lucian. And this the main male character in this book also has a similar name to one of the guys in the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. But I like this Lucian much better than the Lucian in the Knock 'Em Out series. And I just love I love his relationship with Calliope. The next book that I read in the past couple of weeks was Wicked by Gregory Maguire. And as you all know, Wicked is one of my favorite musicals of all time. I saw the original cast back in 2003 with Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, and I loved the recent movie adaptation with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. This book was an easy 5 stars for me, and if you are into fairy tale retellings, another great fairy tale retelling of his besides Wicked is called Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister, by which is Cinderella retold from the perspective of one of her stepsisters. The next book is a historical fiction book called The Only Woman in the Room. This is by the same author as The Personal Librarian and First Ladies. So I was introduced to this author last year. I can't remember who read The Personal Librarian. I think it might have been Haley Pham. I did not really like The Personal Librarian because I couldn't get into what the main character was doing by I guess it had to do with the time period because she was a black person who was getting a job in a mostly white job in a time period where that job was not very popular for black people. The character in A Personal Librarian, her name was Belle, and I just didn't like her. The character in this book is named So this is by the actress. This book is about the actress Hedy Lamarr, who actually was not originally named Hedy Lamarr. That was her stage name. So basically, this is about the actress Hedy Lamarr and how she started out. She was a Jewish actress. She possessed a stunning beauty. This almost certainly saved her from the rising Nazi party and led to marriage with an Austrian arms dealer. She also possessed a stunning mind. Underestimated, she overheard the Third Reich's plans while at her husband's side, understanding more than anyone would guess. She devised a plan to flee in disguise. From their castle, and a whirlwind escape landed her in Hollywood. She became Hedy Lamarr, a screen star. But she kept a secret, even more shocking than her heritage or her marriage. She was a scientist, and she knew a few secrets about the enemy. She had an idea that might help the country fight the Nazis. If anyone would listen to her, could the world handle both? The discussion question I wanted to answer today is, this book explores the inspiration behind Hedy's invention, as well as the moment where the ideas converged to fashion a secret communication system. Please discuss the various events that may have served as catalysts for her invention. Has Hedy's story caused you to wonder about the process of creation and stories behind other innovations, particularly the roles that women may have played? So Hedy Lamarr was responsible for designing Morse code, which was the way that people communicated over telegraphs in the Second World War to talk to each other. And I mean, it was really interesting learning about all the technology behind that. And I think this was definitely my favorite book by Marie Benedict. The next book I think I'm going to read by her is probably The Other Einstein. Other books that I returned to the library that I wanted to talk about are Mina's Matchbox, which I gave 4 stars to. This book is by the same author who wrote The Memory Police, which I listened to an audiobook in March as part of my TBR for books that came out the same time that Friends and Gilmore Girls are on. This book came out in 1994, I believe, and I really enjoyed it. Mina's Matchbox is a more recent release by this author. This is by the same author as The Memory Police, and I really liked this book a lot. I just love this guy's writing style. Let's see. The other book I wanted to talk about is I Tell You I Love You, But Then I Have to Kill You by Ali Carter. I just returned this book to the library this morning. It is a thriller murder mystery book that I really enjoyed. This is the second book I have read by Ali Carter. The first book was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year, which was her Christmas release from last December. Now I will get into my reading plans for the rest of the summer. Okay, so my main TBR for this summer is backdated booktuber recommendations from last year. Some of these books include Rules for Civility by Amor Towles, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, which is a reread, A Fellowship of Bakers in Magic by Jay Penner, Rebel Witch, which is the second book in the Heartless Hunter duology, Two Twisted Crowns, the sequel to One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, Water Moon, which was one of Gabby Reeves' top recommendations from January, and When the Moon Hatched, which has been on my TBR since last September. For historical fiction, the one recommendation I have is from Sarah Caroli. The book is called Homeseeking. That is currently on my hold list on Cloud Library. For mystery, I am waiting to get The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett at the library so I can read the next book in its duology, which came out in April. Currently, for nonfiction recommendations from A Book Olive, I am reading Eve and 1, 2, 3, 4, The Beatles in Time. And then for romance recommendations from Rachel Catherine and Gabby Reeves, I am waiting to get Savor It and Love Unleashed and Better Late Than Never. Oops. I am also going to be... Oh, wait a minute. Other book recommendations from Gabby Reeves that are on my current TBR list are from her video that she posted last week, where she gave recommendations. If you like this movie, you will like this book. Those two books that I will be adding to my TBR are Shiver by Ali Reynolds and The Last Word by Taylor Adams. And the books that goes with those movies are Hush and Challengers. I will also be participating in the Summerween Marathon on Gabby Reeves' channel from July 5th to July 12th. And for those prompts, I have selected The Last Word by Taylor Adams, The Guest List by Lucy Foley, Lungfish, which is on my bookshelf, and Come Closer by Sarah Gran. And then my general thriller horror TBR for this summer include Affinity, Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which is a reread while I prepare for the sequel to come out on October 7th. Bury Your Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. Spook, I don't remember the author of that. The Crucible, which is a play by Arthur Miller about the Salem witch trials. Vampires of El Norte. And With a Vengeance, Riley Sager's new release. Aside from The Summer of Broken Rules, the books on my Comfort TV Shows TBR are The Authenticity Project, The Summer of Broken Rules, which I just showed you, The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, When Breath Becomes Air, and for Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR, aside from the books that I showed you yesterday, other books that I will be reading for the summer on that TBR include Enlightened Transsexual Comics, which was recommended to me with Cindy. Garlic and the Witch and Garlic and the Vampire, which is a duology graphic novel series. Out with the Tide, Shipmate, The Freedom Writers' Diaries, and War and Me. And also the top anticipated releases I am hoping to read this month are My Friends by Friedrich Bachman, Rules for Ruin by Mimi Matthews, Swept Away by Beth O'Leary, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, Dream On, Ramona Riley by Ashley Herring Blake, Fable Before the End of the World by Ava Reed, Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake, I Am Made of Death by Kelly Andrew, and Wild Side by Elsie Silver. So stay tuned for further reading updates. My next reading progress video will be out on June 9th after I get home from book club at Print Bookstore. Have a good weekend, everybody.